Have you considered doing YouTube?
I've been told that YouTube podcast, Kellen, all my years I put my talent to picking juries and, defending people, but I should be there and I should be on the radio or somewhere, who knows. But you know what? I decided when my book came out and it hit, I said, I'm going to take full advantage of it, and maybe it'll impact the system too, and things will get better, Kellen. I am so my name is Frank Abrams. I am a federal and state criminal defense attorney for 38 years, mainly representing the poor and indigent. And my book is The Cockfight, which is right now the #1 best-selling legal thriller on Ingram Spark and on other forums.
Diversified game. Learn how to start, run, and sustain your business.
Hey, it's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, I'm bringing you Doctor, because when you get your JD, you guys, I always like to put some respect. Yeah, we got Frank Abrams, and he's going to give us the game, and I'm not clickbaiting you guys, The Cockfight. That's the name of the book. It's on Amazon, has great reviews, so we're going to get right into it. Frank, why did you name your book The Cockfight?
Excellent question. All right, and as you see the rooster, the fighting rooster on the cover of the book. So I'm a federal and state criminal defense attorney for 38 years in the system. And I'm in court one day and I get news that there's a Kentucky crime lab out of Louisville that's mishandling DNA evidence, basically faking DNA results. So I said to myself, Kellen, what could go wrong there, right? Faking DNA results. So I grabbed my yellow pad and commenced to write, what is now a #1 best-selling book. So the book, which is fact-based, it's fact-based fiction, but is based on people I've represented and my friends have represented, is about a teacher of the year who's falsely accused of a relationship with a student due to this faked DNA evidence, loses everything he has, and is living under a bridge. It's set in South Florida, but other people come through from other places. And he's living under a bridge in what actually existed was called the Julia Tuttle sex offender colony, which was a place where they used to put people who had these type of offenses. And basically, what it is that they couldn't live near schools or parks or anywhere near that. So living with him under the bridge, it's too violent there, he moves to another bridge, are various homeless people. A guy named One Lip, No Brains, Ebenezer, Amos, who's an African American who was paralyzed in a wrongful police shooting, and a one-legged priest who has left the church to minister to street people. Now I'm getting to the point. Every third Friday of the month, they have cockfights under the bridge. The analogy being that in the criminal justice system, they treat people like animals. They treat them like fighting roosters. They make them mean and angry towards each other, and somebody in the end makes money.
Wow.
Hence, I named the book The Cockfight. And the cockfight is this teacher's fight to clear his name. It is a book about injustice, redemption, a rooster, and a love story. Because, Kellen, I had to throw in a love story for the ladies.
That's smart. That is smart. A story like that, was this, I know it was, based in fiction, but was this one that you saw on the news, or is this one that you worked on, or maybe you put a bunch of client stories in there and mixed it up so they wouldn't come for royalties when they come make the movie? Uh,
You hit it, Kellen. You hit it. You the last one, and plus, but it's fact-based fiction, and I'll tie it all together. How factual it is, because it cuts both ways. But by making it fiction, I was able to draw in other clients as well who had suffered other injustices in the system. You see, in a normal situation, you don't get all of these people in one book who've suffered all of these various injustices. So I was able to bring it all together. But let me tell you how factual it is. So when I say it cuts both ways, I got a call the other day from the South Carolina Daily Gazette wanting me to write an article. I said, well, what does it have to do with South Carolina? They said, well, remember that Kentucky crime lab? I said, yeah. Well, someone who was the victim of a vicious sexual assault moved to South Carolina and got a telephone call a few years back from the Louisville, Kentucky police that the case is being dropped because the crime lab lost the rape kit. You follow me? The
mm.
same crime lab. So what I'm saying is it cuts both ways.
You've tried it your way, but you're still in debt. Or maybe you're doing okay, but want to invest smarter, grow faster. 𝐿𝐼𝐴 gives you real step-by-step strategies to ditch debt or stack wealth. Stop dreaming and start planning. Visit 𝐿𝐼𝐴 today. I want you to be the next millionaire next door.
Woo! Wow. There's so much in the legal system that, people might watch the shows on TV, and of course Law and Order being one of the most famous ones. But if you had to put a percentage, how many people have you seen that you're like, this is not justice. This should have went the other way. Is it more than a handful after, 30 plus years?
It's more than a handful. And in a lot of cases, what it is they're guilty of something, but not the most serious offense. Or maybe a little, or many times they're not guilty at all. So I see a large percentage of people. And the real problem is when you mention Law and Order, and I'm glad you did, and these types of shows, there's something that us lawyers talk about, and it's called the CSI effect. Okay, this is it. You got a jury out there, you've picked a jury. What is the jury waiting for? Well, most of the time, what they're waiting for is the lab results, the scientific evidence. Now, I want you to think, what do you think goes through their mind when the lab comes out and says, well, they come out with the evidence and say, well, the lab is sure that this is the person who perpetrated the offense. And we have determined this within 1 in a billion. 1 in a billion. So what do you think happens to the jury? Okay. They are immediately guilty. All right. Now, hold on. Think about it. What happens when the lab is faking results? So I turned on the TV news, Kellen, and man is released after 30 years. Man is released after 20 years, found not guilty. And I think to myself, how are you ever going to pay that person back, to give them that 30 years, that 20 years, that 40 years that they've spent in jail? You just can't. So, Kellen, I had to write this book, okay? I
Mhm.
could not live with myself if I did not write this book.
Now, when you talk like that, I'm thinking you might have a series and have some more that you want to put out. What's the next plan?
Well, How about this one? I'm thinking about one about someone stuck in a private jail. You know, they're putting people now in private prisons. You can imagine someone stuck in a private jail, and they say, the lawyers say, well, we can't get you out because the judge has no jurisdiction over a private jail. But think about it. It's funny, but think about it. What if that private jail is in Senegal or in El Salvador? Oh, well, what happened to him? Well, they took him away. He was an American citizen, and they sent him to Senegal. Okay, no, but I
Our
am
Rwanda, our Rwanda.
Rwanda. Yeah, yeah. Well, what happened? What happened to Barry? I don't know. He got somebody angry. They jumped on him, put him in a car, and now he's in Rwanda. So, but I am working on a book, and this has to do with something that I found at a flea market that got me in, of all things, the New York Times, and it got me on the BBC World News. And it's a picture of Billy the Kid along with Pat Garrett, the guy who killed him. So my next book, which is tentatively titled The Slander of Billy the Kid, has to do with what happened to Billy. You see, the way the world works, the justice system works, if you have money and influence, it really doesn't matter what you've done. Why, you can become president of the United States of America. But you're shaking your head. But if you're a poor kid from New Mexico whose mother died when you were 14 years old and you don't know who your father is, you don't have much of a chance. See, Billy was promised a pardon by the then governor, a guy named Lew Wallace, if he talked about the Lincoln County, where he kept his side of the bargain, but apparently he didn't have enough money and influence for them to keep the deal. So hence, I say today there should be postage stamps with Billy the Kid on them, and statues of Billy with the words "Our American Hero."
Wow, wow. Can you go into how much money do you need? Because people might think with 10,000 they're going to get somewhere, but I've worked with lawyers before, and if you don't have six figures for some of these cases, on a small level, you might be sitting for a minute or worried. Like, what is that? And do you think that is the way that the founding fathers set it up, where if you have money, because you could say that globally, right? If you have money, you might be able to get off, unless you're Duterte in the Philippines and they come pick you up and bring you to the Hague. But you got to do a lot. Yeah, you got to do a lot to get there. But
Yeah.
what would you say? How much money does one need? And just break it down for those who not committing crimes, but if they find themselves in a bind.
Are you a successful entrepreneur or one in training? You've got the vision, but do you have the right partner to build your brand, your team, and your future online and off? At CPRfirm.com, we offer expert consulting, financial guidance, and life coaching because we believe in doing life with our clients. After all, what is it for a man to gain the world and lose his soul? Founded by 𝐬𝐿 Coleman, we help our clients not only succeed, but plan to retire rich. Your business deserves the best. Start building your legacy today at CPRfirm.com.
Okay, well, that's, it's real, and I'm going to answer it out of the book. Okay. And this is true. This is true. For those of us who remember, there was a gentleman named John DeLorean. You've heard that name before because
Oh yeah.
he's famous for making that wonderful car that was put in a movie. But I'm not going to discuss that movie or that car. But what happened was John DeLorean finds himself under arrest, and you can all Google it. People seem to have forgotten this, but I remember it well. He was arrested because in order to finance his car business, which was struggling, he was importing in this white powder that people snort up their nose. Follow me?
Yeah, I
Look it up.
follow you.
Look at it. Yeah, you follow me. You look it up. And it's wild. So there were suitcases full of this stuff. He was so guilty, I can't even tell you how guilty he was. But he got that money together. How much? Well, your guess is as good as mine. But I know it wasn't $10,000. It was a lot more than that. And he got these lawyers together, and when he was tried, they argued that it was a fictitious crime, that the government had set it up. Guess what? Not guilty. Not guilty. So people today, in fact, when I was in law school back in the early 80s, I remember my corporation professor talking about the sad story of John DeLorean, who couldn't get traditional financing. No, white powder is not traditional financing, in case people are interested. And I don't recommend it under any set of circumstances. It got him into big trouble, but he had to pay a lot of money for some lawyers to help him out. If you have a real situation, depending on how serious it is and what it is, today, I would say the minimum you're going to spend for a good federal criminal defense attorney is $25,000 up to the moon. A friend of mine just passed away, Roy Black, in Miami, and we used to talk and stuff. But if you were to hire Roy Black, his fees would have gone $500,000 on up. So it all
Wow,
depends.
wow.
And of
And,
course,
oh, go ahead.
yeah,
No, I'm
go ahead.
listening.
No, I say, of course, in certain situations, if you have enough money and you become, say, like President of the United States, you don't have to worry because your charges are basically dismissed. But I'm not going to go there. So
Yeah,
you can make your own
I
choice.
got you. Yeah, you can have 33 felonies and counting, if you have enough power,
Well, if you have enough
influence.
power and influence, and you asked me if if this is what the founding fathers envisioned, and I see, like, right now, people like rolling over in their graves right now. I kind of feel
Yeah.
that way. Um,
Ooh,
but I didn't come here. I came here to talk about injustice. I didn't come here to talk about politics. It's just that sometimes they intersect.
definitely. And the laws are always changing. And, the old saying to have a fortune, you had to commit a crime of some, and then they'll mention the Kennedys and, Prohibition. They'll mention the Bush family and the Nazis. Um, I don't know if that's the only way you can do it, people, but this is why we're here to give you other ways so you're not committing crimes. If you could put every lawyer out of the business, I'm sure they can find something else to do. But can you talk about, when writing your book and being a lawyer, how has AI impacted any of that? Because there's some lawyers who have gotten in trouble. They've been using AI so much and believing AI.
Well, first of all, let me start out with, I wrote this book before AI existed. Okay, so this book is my book. No AI. Yeah, they've been warning all of us. So all the lawyers know about this story. There was a lawyer who decided to cite cases in front of a judge, and so he used AI, and AI came up with cases. The only problem is, Kellen, the cases did not exist in the real world. They existed in the cyber world,
I heard about that
but
one. I
not
heard
not
about that
in
one.
the real world. So how has that impacted things? It's kind of interesting. Um, I know this, when I type in, like, is Frank Abrams a good author onto AI, it says Frank Abrams is a fantastic author, that his books are bestsellers. So that part of AI, I like.
Yeah,
Other,
yeah.
other parts of AI, they scare me a little bit. It's funny. Having grown up in the Star Wars, Star Trek age, I wonder if one day that lawyer representing you might not be an android, you know,
It's
program.
coming. It's
You think
coming.
so? It's coming.
It's coming. We've seen at events, this was a few years ago at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show that happens every year in Vegas, biggest show in America that for tech. And we've seen the holograms, we've seen the humanoid robots in, real form. Megan Wood has a movie on Netflix that shows what's going to come because men and women have been battling forever, but soon men aren't going to have to worry about who's cooking, cleaning, or every other task. They're just going to have their robot do it because they don't want to argue, especially anybody under 25. They don't even know what argument is. I mean, they start crying. So and that's not to pick on y'all, but y'all just are a little too sensitive for my liking. Um, but yeah, it's coming. The real question is, how will the law? Will you have to just, just like Tesla can drive itself in other cars, but you still have to have your hands on it. So you still might have to have your JD, but your robot, your assistant will probably go out there and speak for you. Yeah, why not? Why not? Because think about the paraplegic. Think about the person who got sick. I passed the test. I've cloned myself. Why not? I could see it. I could see it.
So Kellen, what you're saying is my job as an attorney, I'm going to be a programmer. I'm going to be sitting there having to program this robot. Now, let me tell you what scares me, and it's scared me for years, and it is part of the system. And what it is it's something called sentencing guidelines. Okay? How do they sentence
Mhm.
people in both state court and federal court? Well, you committed this crime, that crime, this misdemeanor. Here's your criminal record. We're taking the numbers and we're adding them up. You follow me? So they
Mhm.
use basically an algorithm to determine how long you're going to spend in jail. You see, when you take the human factor out of it, then it all goes south. Okay? Because in the end, we're all human. Okay, we're people. Everybody's different. And in my book, one character talks, the gentleman in the wheelchair, he says, when they sentenced me, they used a bunch of numbers and added them up. I'm not a number. I'm a human being. You see,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
like every horrible science fiction movie you have ever seen. 2001 Space Odyssey included. Every single one, where the robots and the computers are taking over. Not good.
Hello, everyone. Come along with London and Sydney as they show you around the vibrant country of Cameroon and explore the heart of Africa through the eyes of London and Sydney. To explorers who journey across the great city of Yaoundé, exploring its rich culture, vibrant market squares, cultural heritage, and wildlife. With giggles and excitement, London and Sydney Explore Cameroon takes you on a fun-filled adventure, providing insight into the country's culture and traditions through the pages of this book. It's packed with exciting stories and super cool facts about Cameroon that will make you go, wow. Get your copy, available on Amazon and in libraries near you. There's only one easy way to experience the exploration of Cameroon, and it's through London and Sydney. Don't wait, get yours.
Get off easy, and by the last case, it's like, throw the book at them.
I hope not. I hope judges, good judges, are above that, but I wonder, yeah, and it bleeds over to the whole system. Like Like, I wonder when my clients get various speeding tickets and traffic tickets, if it wasn't the end of the day and they needed to meet some kind of a quota. You follow?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, wait a
yeah.
second. Oh, I sentenced this person to a lower sentence than I should have sentenced them to, but the next guy, I'll just make up for it by maxing them out. I I hope there aren't too many. I hope there aren't any judges like that. Okay, but what do I know? I can only hope. But I hope. I don't think there are too many.
Well, okay. Well, that's glad to hear. Again, never thought of it like that, and of course, there's nothing, on record. And I can hear the police officers who are listening to this right now say, "We don't have quotas. It's even illegal in my county, my state." They don't have. Okay, you guys don't have quotas. You have performance goals. I get it. It's not quotas, but activity standards. I get it. It's it's funny how the system and the laws and how things are formed. But
Yeah.
that's awesome. So with the new book, where do you see yourself publishing and printing out that book? And can we see you doing any public engagement? Because your book sets up your, Toastmasters, your NSA speeches, your TED Talks, and on and on.
Yeah. Well, I'm going for this book, The Cockfight. I'm going everywhere. Every week I'm at a new signing or I'm interviewed. Last week it was Chicago TV, and then Tucson, and then last weekend I was in Greenville, South Carolina. Then before then Lexington, and next weekend coming up you will find me in Charleston, South Carolina. And every week people like my book. See, it's like this, Kellen. Everybody always writes books like, "Well, we caught the criminal and we caught the bad guy," and oh my God. But nobody apparently has been writing books about people who are innocent, who are caught in the system, except this gentleman here. And you know what, Kellen? Like I say, I needed to write this book. Where is it going? Well, I'm hopeful one day maybe they'll pick it up for a movie or a Netflix or something like that. This one. My book on Billy the Kid is already making waves, my upcoming book, particularly because I've been in world news already for that particular situation. So, as far as that's concerned, probably have a major publisher and see where that goes from there. But people, for some reason, are always interested in Billy the Kid. It's like something, it's mysterious. It's something that never goes away. And it's sort of like this. It's like I say, depending on your point of view, he was either a villain or he was a hero. Okay?
Mhm.
You see, there was something in the Wild West called the Code of the West. And it basically was like this: some people just deserve killing. You follow me?
Yep.
It was the Code of the West. Now, without getting into some arguments, and people will argue with that, there isn't a single person that Billy apparently dispatched that you couldn't make that argument. Corrupt sheriffs, corrupt officials, people who themselves were thieves and criminals and were trying to do Billy in. You see, I don't subscribe to taking justice in one's own hands. Okay, I have
Mm.
never ever subscribed to that. I believe in the rule of law, and I believe that justice should take place in this court system and in the system. But what I am saying is, in the Old West, there were a lot of times and examples you can find where people lived by that old Wild West code.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It's ingrained in the, in the. I'm from California, so we grew up hearing about all of those things, and B Billy the Kid, and you see that picture. I'm curious. with I believe you having the only,
One with Pat
verified
Garrett.
pitch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hate it's hard for me to enroll, but it's sort of like, hold on, I got a bigger picture of it over there, but here we go. Can you see it?
I see it. I see it. Were you ever on any shows like Pawn Stars or anything like that when you
Yeah,
found that
well,
picture?
A&E just contacted me and they're paying me a few dollars to do a special on the greatest flea market finds of all time. And see, that's really part of my book. I didn't know what I had found, Kellen. I had no clue. I said, cowboys. That's not usual. And there were other pictures. There were 4 other pictures, and they're all connected. So if you'd like, I'll explain it very quickly.
Mhm.
So I had a room. My interest is photography and cameras. That's one of my interests. And collecting old cameras. And I used to look for old um, tintype photographs, Civil War soldiers, things like that. So I said, cowboys, that's not usual. And I put these 5 pictures together and I put them on a wall in a little room we were Airbnb bedding and breakfasting. And it sat up there for 5 years. My friend Alan came up to me. He was putting in Wi-Fi in our house, but he's a friend of mine. And he says, I think there's somebody famous in that picture. I chuckled. Maybe Billy the Kid's in that picture. I chuckled. Okay, I shouldn't have chuckled. So we moved to another house and back to our other house that we owned. And so we were no longer using it for that room we were renting out. And people, by the way, would say, those are neat pictures. But I put it by my bed and news broke that a gentleman had found a picture of Billy the Kid supposedly playing croquet with his friends. I said to myself, well, I'm going to Google Billy the Kid. I Google Billy the Kid, and then first thing I see is a picture of Pat Garrett, the man who killed Billy the Kid. I look at that. I looked at my wife. I said, that's Pat Garrett. And who is the gentleman with the big Adam's apple and the cardigan sweater? And of course, that Billy had a large Adam's apple and he wore cardigan sweaters and he was younger. So I send my picture email to, I said, a museum in New Mexico, the Billy the Kid Museum. I said, they should know something. Guy gets back to me immediately. He says, that's Pat Garrett. And I think that's Billy the Kid. I said, I
Wow.
better call a professor or something because I knew being a lawyer that nobody takes people's word. You have to have people in the academic world. So I sent it to a gentleman named Bob Stahl. I didn't send it to him. Actually, I talked to him on the phone and we spoke and he says, well, I'm sorry, I'm not in Arizona where he taught. He says, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, where my wife's being treated at a hospital. Now I'm from Asheville. I said, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm driving there. I drive there with the pictures, show him the pictures. And he says, let me see your Billy and his mouth drops open.
Huh.
He immediately contacts every news organization he could, and that's what got it started. I went to New Mexico. The news organizations followed me. I met all of the experts. Every single one of them said that's Billy and Pat Garrett. We identified the other people, a guy named Dirty Dave Rudabaugh, a guy named Barney Mason. One person's in the shadows. He's hard to identify. But the key is another of the pictures when Garrett had killed Billy. And remember what I'm telling you about if you have money and influence and stuff like that. Billy was promised a pardon, but what the problem was, Billy was stealing cattle. He was cattle rustling. So he angered a lot of people in the cattle business in New Mexico, and they had money. They had money and influence. So that's when the governor went back on his word, and they decided to hire a gentleman to kill Billy, a guy named Pat Garrett, and that he was going to run for sheriff. So Pat, they said, we'll pay you $500 if you basically do Billy in. Pat was scared to death of Billy. He was friends with Billy, but he knew he couldn't outshoot Billy. Billy the Kid could get on a horse and ride past a fence where there were doves sitting on the fence. He could, at full gallop, he could shoot the head off every dove. No one could outshoot Billy. So Garrett goes to Billy and his gang and says, hey, look, man, why don't you just head on down south to Mexico? Lay low. Things will, things will go away. And they think this picture, I don't know if you'd see it or not, because it's not really, it should be on a board or something. I didn't realize I was going to be showing it to you. But you can look it up online. He thinks this picture is when Garrett went to talk to Billy and his gang and say, please head on down to Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, Garrett eventually did kill Billy. It was sort of luck. Billy stumbled into the room and Garrett took 2 wild shots and one hit Billy near the throat. But after Garrett killed Billy, Pat Garrett killed Billy, everybody around would call him a liar, a coward, a murderer, someone who killed his friend for money. And you know how it's funny, Kellen, how justice rolls around, how things seem to come around. Guess what? Pat Garrett was murdered in the end. He met his death by murder. Someone he had a dispute with over land.
Wow.
And that guy got off. And I think one of the reasons that guy got off was he was able to say, it was all self-defense. This is the same guy that murdered Billy the Kid. You follow me?
I
Isn't
do.
that funny?
Ooh,
Isn't that funny? So
that is.
that's how justice goes full circle. The Cockfight is a book about injustice. A one-legged priest, a gentleman in a wheelchair paralyzed by the police. He was guilty of something, but he sure as heck didn't deserve to have his right to walk taken away, did he? Shot in the back. How many things happen that if there weren't cameras around, we wouldn't know? How about, did you see on the news not too long ago, the police officer punched this guy through a window?
Yeah.
Did you see
I
that?
saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Did you see that? Because of are you ready? your taillights out or something like that. What if his headlights were out or something like that?
Crazy times. Crazy times. But as as a creative, and when I say creative, I mean, of course, you're an author, but you also are an inventor.
Aha! Hold on.
Yeah.
The Banjo Town.
Yeah, tell people about that.
I'll tell you about that. You're a diversified game, right? You'll never
Yes,
find
sir.
anybody more diversified than me in your life. That, by the way, is a signature by an old-time banjo player named Earl Scruggs. So, see the rattles? So,
Oh, yeah.
my brother Rick was a newspaper man and an old-time banjo player. He played clawhammer banjo. He was friends with Pete Seeger and a lot of other people. And he passed away of skin cancer at the age of 47. So I'm practicing down in Miami in the late 90s. And there's this music store pawn shop around the corner. And it's got tambourines. And, Rick had taught me how to play basic old-time clawhammer banjo, which, by the way, my big hero in old-time banjo is 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿 and the Carolina chocolate drops. The banjo was brought to America by African Americans. It's one of the most wonderful things that we have. So anyway, I said, I can make a banjo out of a tambourine. So I bought about 10 tambourines, and I went to that famous musical supply store known as Home Depot. You've heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
And I bought some oak floorboards. There's one of them back there, but probably can't see. Bought some oak floorboards, put it together, made a neck, and fit with fiddle pegs. And I said, this actually sounds good. So I made one that was for kids, a small one. It's like a ukulele. And I made one for adult banjo players. And I said, has this ever been patented? So I went to a patent attorney. Being an attorney, I knew other attorneys. No, it's never been patented. So I said to my wife, she said, I love it. Let's patent it. So I patented it. Okay. And then another lawyer friend of mine who's a lot smarter than I am, a guy named Gene, said, Frank, I think I know someone who might be interested. So there was this company up in New York, and they loved it. It was called Woodstock Percussion. They loved it. And they marketed it. And for a while, it took off. First 3-month period, we sold around 10,000. You think that's a lot of money, though? Think about this. And I'm just telling people who want to patent things. I spent, and I got a break on the cost. Back then, I spent over $10,000 on the patent. As an inventor, you get like 7%, follow, of the wholesale
Yeah.
price. So I was making about 70 cents per instrument. So even though 10,000 sounds like a lot, in the end, I'm like barely making up my money that I spent. Okay, so I did something. I said, well, I don't really love living down in South Florida. Had changed, it wasn't the South Florida I grew up in. But I said, I'm going to run for judge. And if I don't make it, I'm out of here. I'm going to go to North Carolina. My mother-in-law lived up there. My cousins are lawyers in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And I was the only one left in Miami. And I just didn't want to raise my kids down in South Florida. But I said, I'm going to run for judge. I ran for judge against a gentleman. I won't discuss it, but I got 43% of the vote. He didn't have my same political background. I think we were on different sides of the spectrum. And I lost. I almost won. I got 43% of the vote, but I said, I'm going to sell banjos. From lawyer to man. So I came up to North Carolina and we sold our house there. Property values had gone up, so we had a little money. And I would go to various festivals. If a disabled kid would come by or someone would say, I don't have money, I love your band. My wife would look at me, I'd look at her. Here, it's yours for free.
Nice.
We gave away a lot of them. But, you say, well, why didn't you make millions of dollars? I don't know. You know what? I made a lot of kids happy is what I did. Okay. Then I said, I better become a lawyer again. Okay. Because money's running out. So I took the North Carolina bar exam, passed, and I once again became a lawyer. And I'm representing the poor and the indigent. Okay. And people don't have money. And you know what they call a lawyer who represents the poor? Poor.
What?
Poor. That's what they call.
Well, wait, but, and then I want to go and I'm going to break in two different questions. So I ask everybody what their community give back is, and you just mentioned one. So if you have another one, please let it be known and let us know how we can help as a community because people are always listening and they want to know how do they help out. But also that Billy the Kid photo had to be worth a good amount of money if you sold it. So talk about both of those things if you're able.
First of all, I'm so glad you raised this subject. You're you're a great interviewer. You're the best. So here we go. What's near and dear to my heart? My wife is volunteers and works for 12 Baskets. Okay. And they are a food rescue organization that gives food to the homeless and to those who cannot afford food. Okay. So right now, my lovely wife is out there working, volunteering, giving food to the homeless and to the poor. Okay. So if anybody listening, look up 12 Baskets. I know that they'll find it's out there. My war with Billy the Kid is ongoing with the establishment. Yeah, everybody says it's worth some money, quite a bit of money. Okay, remember it's 10 years. I've been part of the war. The people in the old time establishment, they're like, well, there's only supposed to be one picture of Billy the Kid. You follow me? The big
Yeah.
auction houses, and they all say, oh, we know it's real. We're 100% sure it's real. We know it's real. It has to vet in the Wild West world. Okay. But the Wild West world, and I'm writing about all of this in my book, is controlled by various people. And if they don't own the picture themselves, then hey, what is it real or not? So yes, I have solicited and I have heard from auction houses and others and museums. Oh wow, this is fantastic. This is real. But let's vet it in the Wild West world. If you look up my picture, including on AI, you'd mentioned AI, is the Abrams tintype real? It'll come. Of course it's real. Yes, it's real. All the experts say it's real. Everybody says it's real. Everyone says it's real. There will come a time when it will auction off. But I will say this, and this is from deep in my heart. When it does, I will remember whence I came. Okay? I'll remember all the people who need help. You follow? You know
Yeah.
what? I won't be making a ballroom in my house and putting like gold
I
leaves
got
on
you.
it. But I
I
won't I
got
won't
you.
be doing that.
You won't buy an airplane and put your name on the side either, huh? And park it
No,
when
no.
everybody knows you're here.
I just won't do that, Kellen. You follow? I just won't
I
do it.
do. I do. Well, that so, and people don't. I'm so glad you mentioned that. People don't understand how. I don't want to say criminal, but you got many of them in there. As much as you have in dressage and horse racing in the art world, that they basically don't want you to throw off what they already have, and there's room for more than one. I mean, this is
There's
a
room for
new
more than one.
discovery.
Well, it's interesting. I don't want to mention his name, but there's this very, very rich guy who's part of a family, and he owns that Billy Standing. And several years back, he paid a couple million for it. But when he bought that, he was supposedly told that there's only supposed to be one picture of Billy the Kid, but that's not true. In fact, on my picture, on Billy is written Billy and the Kid. Pat Garrett's name is on his vest. On the back is Pat Garrett's name and the names of others. And you see, uh, every expert, it's Billy. You can't have these people together and it not be Billy. But with that said, it doesn't matter what the evidence is and who the experts are. If someone has an agenda, they're just not going to agree. And I guarantee you this, Kellen, if they owned the photo, there would be no question. It's as real as can be. It is real, it is authentic, and every expert has said so. Oh, and getting back to what's going on in the world. And I want to put this, they've told me I need to say this, my fellow attorneys who represent the poor. I'm a CJA panel attorney, okay? That's a Criminal Justice Act attorney. And in federal cases, I'm appointed to represent people who don't have money. The payment comes from the federal government. Okay, money is put aside. Well, for us CJA attorneys, they've run out of money this year. So they say that we're not going to get paid, and I'll still do the work. I'm okay, but some people aren't. That we're not going to get paid until late October. That they've basically run out of money to pay attorneys that represent the poor. The shortage of money, I am told, is 103 million, and that's across the country for all attorneys who represent the poor across the country. So 103 million would pay for that shortage. There's a gentleman in Washington who had a military parade, and he spent $250 million. So he could have had a little lesser parade, and the poor in this country would be the people who represent the poor would be paid. Or in the alternative, maybe he could make the ballroom but not put the gold leaf
Yeah.
on the walls. You follow what I'm saying? And
Oh yeah.
that would be the money to help represent the poor in this country. But what do I know? I just write books, Cal. I write books about injustice. What do I know?
More than that, and you said something that many people have said, and I know even Dave Ramsey has said, if we took 20% of the Halloween budget and our pet budget, we could, outside of the systemic things, we could feed and take care of a lot of, hunger. But that makes too much sense, and you need a parade with.
Too much sense around. And the other part about it that really also concerns me is that other countries are way ahead of us on their infrastructure. You go to China, you go to Japan, and they have bullet trains and all of these things that help people get from place to place, modern buildings. In this country, everything's old now. The streets are old, in disrepair. We don't have those bullet trains. We don't have all those things. And maybe that's part of there not being a fair tax system. It's wonderful. I mean, I'm nobody likes to pay taxes. Nobody who likes to pay tax. But fair taxes should be paid by everybody, including the rich and everyone. But if the money isn't there and it's not being spent, how is our infrastructure going to get any better? You see, and
True. How are the people going to get any better when you have
right,
you have sick people running around, and some food that's not healthy, and it's always it's so interesting. So that's why I say you have a series of books, because from the cockfight, the hunger fight, and every other type of fight. I don't want to give them too much, because you'd be great to have your own podcast, if you don't, or YouTube, same thing, and giving people tips and wisdom that their father should have gave them. But again, not all things are equal, like these fingers.
yeah, you got it. Not all things are equal, Kellen. And I want to tell you, I was raised in a different age, a completely different age. Um, I just can't imagine how things have gone. But I do know this, unless we fight for justice, unless we ourselves take an interest, um, things aren't going to get any better. We can't just sit back. We have, I'll write books. I'm put in that position. I think about all the crazy things that have happened to me. I had a judge say to me that not long ago, Frank, things happen to you that don't happen to other people. I mean, I want you to think about this. Um, I'm a lawyer, just a regular old lawyer. I invent this little instrument, by the way, and makes the Metropolitan Museum of Art catalog. How many? On my kitchen table. But my heart's in the right place. I say, I want to give it to kids. I'm walking through a flea market. I pick up a picture. I don't even know it. It's Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett. Follow me? How many times does
Yep.
that happen? And then I say, in my heart, I need to write this book about injustice. And I joke, my lawyer friends get together and they say, Abrams, we've been talking, us lawyers have been talking, and we're not so much we're not so much surprised that you wrote a best-selling book. What we're surprised about is most of us took a vote and we didn't even think you could read or write. So, I they smugly they laugh. But there has to be a reason, you see, and you have to do, if your heart is in the right place. If you want that gold leaf ballroom, I don't think that's necessarily where it's at. But you only live once, Kellen. You only live once. And you should take advantage of that, to the golden rule, and treat others as you would want to be treated. And yeah, as long as something's in me, I'll write a few books, and if somebody wants to buy some of my books, wonderful. But money will be channeled towards people who need it, the
Yeah,
poor and
and
homeless.
And if they can't buy the books, if they can't buy them, you said something in the beginning of the interview about them being on Ingram Spark, which I have a publishing company. We write books over here, and I tell people Amazon is great, but
Right,
Ingram Spark is where the library can actually buy your book. So
right.
go ask your local librarian people. If you say, "Oh, I don't have money right now, everything is so high," go demand, request. You're a friend of the library. Maybe you pay you $20 or $40 a year. Go request the book, and you'd be surprised. Your librarian will say, "Oh, wow, boom." I don't know if you have a Kirkus review that they can then go reference and say, "Hey, this is
Oh,
what they."
that's good. You know what? You said a great thing. So I get a call from, are you ready? The CEO of Publishers Weekly. We've
Mhm.
taken notice of your book. It's making. I said, you've got to be kidding. This is Publishers Weekly. So they're doing a review. They've asked to do a review. They're doing a review. And Publishers
That's
Weekly's been
good.
around since like 1874. So yeah, yeah. And of course, you can see the reviews by various other people online, including Triumph of the Now and others. And of course, this wonderful interview I'm having with you is going to be posted and reposted and reposted and reposted. So hopefully people will see that, Kellen. By the way, it's beautiful where you are. And it almost looks like South Florida or California. Where are you?
Yeah, it's Palm Beach County. So when you were talking, that's what I said with referencing the plane, and everyone knows you're here because you park your plane right where everybody can see it, and it has your name. That's my Irish twin. So I've read all his books except the last ones in politics because I vote George Carlin because he let us know why we
Oh yeah,
have what we have.
brilliant,
Um,
brilliant, brilliant committee.
yeah.
Wonderful take on life. Everything. He's just brilliant, Kellen.
Yes,
Uh,
yes. So I want people to go check out this book. I want them to go ask their local librarian to go check out this book. You guys, reading will change your life. You wonder why certain people are where they are and others suffer. It's what you're reading, who you are around. Let them know where they can find you and tap in and request you to speak, please, before we depart.
Okay, well, you can go to my site also and message me. My site is the Cockfight. It is on Facebook, as well as you can always look up Frank Abrams attorney and email me as well. And that's easy. frankabramslaw@gmail.com. So, Kellen, books are available Amazon, everywhere. Ingram Spark, Kindle, Audible. It's available on every single forum. And like I say, right now it's ranked #1 best legal thriller on the Ingram Spark system, but it's also been #1 general fiction as well. People seem to like the book, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. It'll tell you a lot about what really happens in the system. But what a wonderful interview. You are a wonderful person. And gosh, I'm looking out there in your backyard. I won't mention his name, but my wife's uncle, he's down on Hollywood Beach. And boy, I'm seeing beauty right now. So, but
Yeah, thank you, thank you. That's why you come out here. This is the standard, South Florida view. and we enjoy it in the country of Palm Beach County, where you can still, shoot your gun, park as many cars without an HOA telling you, you violated, and they're gonna put, liens and all that. So you guys have got the game. I know most of you are listeners. I know on Podbean and Apple is where you listen heavy, but I want you to go over to YouTube. Do us a favor, go when you stop your car or whatever you're doing, go on YouTube, put a voice with the face, so when you see Frank, you can say, "Hey, this is where I heard you, sign my book." And you guys can find out what his next inventions are going to be. Maybe he'll bring you guys to YouTube. I think he's perfect for it. So I thank you, Frank. Thank you,
Thank you.
audience.
Thank
Yes.
you. Hey.
You guys
Thank
share
you
this
so
game.
much.
Yeah, share this game, you guys, and be blessed.
Are you tired of the rat race in America? Are you ready to visit the motherland to relax and rejuvenate? Are you ready to explore all that Africa has to offer? Then check out the brand new Diversified Game Academy course, Prepare for My First Trip to Africa. Are you worried about being able to afford the trip? We got you. We will show you how to travel either on a budget or as a baller. Learn how to stress the value of the USD. Did you know that 100 United States dollars is worth over 1,000 South African rand, or 10,000 Kenyan shillings, or 54,250 West African CFA? Are you worried about taking your kids? Get the game from 𝐾𝐨𝐴, a bona fide world traveler, having traveled to almost 20 countries, several of those in Africa. Get the game on taking your kids on their first trips. Learn how to find the best tickets, get the visas, and plan your own adventures in Africa. Don't let Eddie Murphy have all the fun. Plan your own coming to Africa trip starring you, produced by you, and featuring you. If you are ready for a life-changing experience, sign up for our course today, Diversified Game Academy. Get prepared and purchase at diversifiedgame.com.